We're in Cleveland right now, and we just moved into this beast. And it doesn't actually feel like we just moved in. Kind of just feels like a road trip up to my parents' place for a wedding. Feel very out of it, feel very out of the loop making videos. Sometimes the best way to get back into it is just to do it. I think the main reason why it feels so weird to be back making a video is I haven't done any work for like 40 days. Yeah, the last thing I did was 33 days ago. I made a live stream. And that was already like 4 or 5 days into me only doing work on the van. And we got so much of it done. And I'll show you bits and pieces of it before I do a full walkthrough tour of everything. But today, so this video isn't just me walking through boring stuff. Let's talk about this number of things that I learned while doing no work for the past over a month. But the first thing that I have to do is just go through my notes. And I normally try to keep this under 10 general notes here because I have all these different folders that I put them into. But now I'm at 53 and I need to sort those all out, see what I need to keep, and make a to-do list and schedule. We're gonna be heading out to Maine, hopefully at the end of this week. There's a couple things left that we need to finish on the van. I also have 210 emails that I need to go through. Most of them aren't important, but I like to at least get that number down to 0. Let the fun of the day begin. Gosh, so one of these is, this is one of my to-dos. From August 15th, it says tape off van area for everything, meaning to just set the layout for everything. And today is only September 21st, so a month and 6 days later, the whole van is done. Should probably unlock it first. It's a little bit close. Shoot. I forgot my stand. We'll have to make do. I'm realizing how many of these things that I wrote down I actually need to keep as notes. I was hoping I could delete like 30 or 40 of them. I think I tend to overprescribe what I think I can do, which is one of the things that I learned this month. Yeah, I guess that counts. I still haven't written down everything that I want to talk about for the things that I learned, but one of the things I definitely learned is tend to overestimate the amount of things that I can do. From growing up, I've always tried to overachieve in things, but I think one of the main things that I learned is that it's okay to do less than what you thought that you're gonna be able to do. For instance, this is my to-do list from about a week before we moved into the van. Everything from recutting side pieces for the water cabinet, because I made them too short, all the way down to the very end of what we needed to do for the van, which would have been fixing rust on the outside. So I just highlighted everything that we had done, and it's so much less than what I wanted to have gotten done. This is all we were able to get done out of this whole sheet here. Let me throw it onto this big monitor so we can actually get a reference for scale. It looks like it's just about half. We also got this one done right here, installing blackout curtains, but that was it. And the other thing too is over-prescribing things in a certain time frame. There will be other times that we can work on the van. I have a couple of tools that will come with us, so not everything had to completely be done by this point, and that's okay. But what I learned here is that it should be practical, not perfect. And so we were able to move into the van, and everything that needed to be done systems-wise, water system, electrical system, well, kind of water system, was done, and it was good enough, and we were able to sleep and have a great time, and it brought us to some really cool places just over the first 2 days that we were in it. So that's the first thing that I learned, is that I overprescribe way too much of what I can do, and it's okay for it to just be practical, not perfect. Okay, I just figured out the other 9 things we're gonna talk about, but I really need to get through the rest of these notes and figure out my plan for the week so we can get started on it. It's 10:40 now. Hopefully I'm done with all of that crap by noon, and I can actually get started on doing some work on the van. All right, it's 12 o'clock. I said that I wanted to get everything done by 12 o'clock. This is our master to-do list for this week. As you can see, we've already checked off some items because I was able to get the to-do list totally done and my email down to only like 3 emails. So that's definitely a positive. I feel like today's honestly gonna be a little bit boring in terms of all the work that I have to do. It's a lot of like calling insurance companies. Thank you. And like crap like that. So let's get into the second thing that I learned this month. You're gonna think that I'm really stupid or just cheesy for this one, but the second thing is just honestly planning ahead. The first major thing is working consistently towards our goals, which mainly look like saving for a van instead of a house, stopping investing into a retirement account in order to invest in the business so that we would have enough money to get by for a little bit. And that really helped because we ended up probably overspending a decent bit on our van, but because we had a plan for that and a plan to consistently put money from our business into the van, we ended up hopefully being able to have it completely cash flowed. I haven't crunched the numbers on that yet because we put everything on credit cards, but also having an emergency fund made this so much easier because I didn't have to worry if we'd be able to actually live our life while we built out the van. But the beautiful thing is that we created a self-sufficient income source as well. We'll get into this a little bit later, but that really allowed me to not worry too much about working on the van, not only time-wise but also money-wise, because I still made some money last month even though I did essentially 0 work. And we'll get to that in a second and in a completely different video so we can break down all those numbers. But if I wasn't self-sufficient in my income, I wouldn't have even been able to have the time to do all of this building because this is all I've done for the past month and a half. And speaking of this being all that I've done, spending that much focused and concerted energy really taught me that overworking for a season can be really beneficial and or necessary. Now the part that always trips me up with this is the for a season part, and I try to overwork myself for longer periods of time, or I call it overworking even though I'm just not working smart and I'll end up burning out and having to take rest, which is something that we'll get to in a second. But even though building this van out was so difficult, and I said many times how much I wanted to burn it to the ground, doing what I did over the past month wouldn't have been possible without doing a little bit of overworking or just putting all of my energy into this one thing. And in order to get all that done, a lot of times you have to create motivating factors for yourself. And one of the things that I realized that I've talked to my counselor a little bit about is that I tend to create unnecessary stress for myself in order to get stuff done. And I talked about this with my wife, with my counselor, and that's the reason I have unnecessary in quotes, because I'm not quite sure if it's good, bad, or neutral. Now, obviously, if you're planning on building out a van in just over a month and basically creating a tiny home in that time frame, there's going to be some stresses, especially since I've never done this before. But what I mean by creating unnecessary stress for myself is that I kind of live in the stress rather than allowing it to be what it is and then moving forward knowing that I have that deadline. The problem with this, and the reason that I'm not quite sure whether it's good or bad, I feel like I'm going to be in such less control of my surroundings now that we live in a van, especially if we're shooting videos, that background noise is just going to be what it is for now. But living in that stress allows me to hyper-focus myself in order to make sure that everything that needs to get done gets done. It's much harder on like my wife or people around me because even though I'm hyper present and looking at everything that's negative rather than appreciating things in the moment, and that's definitely something that I want to work on moving forward. But I love to figure out a way to get so much stuff done in a short amount of time and not be hyper focused because of stress. Gotta send back the old license plate to Florida. But the fifth thing that I learned is kind of just thank you. That I really appreciate you guys a lot. There have been a lot of people over the past month, especially as I've posted some updates on how the van was going, who just let me know that they missed the content. But again, and as always, it's pretty humbling just to get the support from you guys even when I'm not there. And just the fact that my YouTube channel isn't completely dead. It's definitely more dead, but not completely. So thank you so much for that. Hey, so remember how I was talking about needing like to rest more and stuff? Even though I'm wearing the same shirt, I've worn this for like a week now. We are in Maine currently. Chilling at a Walmart that hopefully I'm about to go resell. But it's been like 11 days since I shot the first half of that video because we got a decent bit of stuff done. Like all of this. And another table. Okay, reselling took longer than I expected. So we're in Bar Harbor area of Maine. But the sixth thing that I learned is that you live your financial life in seasons. I've noticed that these seasons for me are kind of three different things that seem to be in a cycle right now. Hopefully the cycle continues. Now these are acquisition or investment, which is what I was doing when I was working at a job. We were acquiring money and then investing it. And then it moved down into conservation, which is what we did after I left my job to make sure that I could continue working for myself. We just tried to spend as little as possible, which we're kind of still in. And then it turned into a season of spending because we started spending all that money that we had saved up for the van. And that's why I'm not even sure if we've been able to pay it all off yet, which I'm hopefully going to be able to figure out later today. Now, ideally, this will all come right back around to acquisition and investment, which is why we're starting to get back to work a lot. We're realizing there's a lot of things that are relatively expensive that we'd want to do. And we're pretty much living on a subsistence income right now as we get into the van, so hopefully this YouTube channel will grow. I'll be able to get back to reselling and actually make some money off of that. And then our third new business, which is about our travels, will hopefully start making money as well. And because we went through this cycle, our acquisition and investment phase will be even bigger this time, hopefully, but we'll see. The seventh thing is to really just lean on the people who are around you. I know as entrepreneurially minded people, or I won't even speak in generalities, I'll just speak for myself. I don't necessarily like to ask people for help, but leaning on others around me, especially my wife and my friend group, even just commiserating with Carissa and letting it be okay that the stuff that sucked was really good. The eighth thing that I learned really freaking sucks. It's that if you do it quickly, be prepared to do maintenance or to even have to redo some things. I really wanted everything to be completely done and done perfectly in the van. You still need to prepare, especially if you do something super fast. One way that we're doing that is by having $100 to $200 of maintenance in our monthly budget, just to make sure that if anything does go wrong in the van, we'll be able to cover that and won't have to worry about taking out more debt. But the other thing that really sucked is that sometimes if you do something fast and it's your first time doing it, you might have to completely redo it or ask for expert help. For instance, this is our whole water system. I made a little outdoor flip down table. And initially I had a fourth jug that looked like these jugs, but then our drainage system wasn't working. So I went with my dad and fixed all of our plumbing because there were actually some leaks going on back there. Which we found out was because I apparently like to cross thread things. And so one of our connections was really kinked and obviously water was leaking out of it. But sometimes you have to get something done in a time frame. So it might not be perfect, and that's okay. It doesn't mean that your work was necessarily bad, except in my case it kind of was, but I figured that out the last day before we were leaving, so I didn't have time to troubleshoot it. There's gonna be other times in the future to get stuff done. And I'm really bad at believing that because of that stress point that I made earlier. The whole universe seems to be caught up in this one specific time frame that I feel, but we're like 2 weeks out from that, and everything's fine, and we can use our water. Yay! The ninth major thing that I learned is that unfortunately, you still need rest. And if you don't think that you need rest or need to take breaks, your body sometimes is just gonna make you. I honestly don't know how many hours I put into this, and I'm not gonna try to track it. But luckily we did have one break built in. It was just one day that we went to the beach and got to do a little bit of fishing. But otherwise, I would try to go 3 weeks on end without stopping or resting at all. And then my body would wake me up at 11 or 12 past my 17 alarms that I wanted to get up. And that happened over and over and over again. I didn't put this down, but also eating and fueling your body is really important. The days that I didn't fuel myself because I didn't take breaks, thinking that I didn't need rest or need refueling, were the days that I was the most frustrated with my work and got the worst work done. But when I took like an hour and a half to actually make sure that I was fed throughout the day and fueled up, my work was so much better. I was so much nicer to Carissa, and I had a much better time doing it. So make sure that you rest and eat. That one is sponsored by my mom. And the 10th major thing that I learned is that you should build systems that work for you when you take time off, because there are going to be times when you have to. Whether that's for an emergency, whether you get sick, or you decide to move over your timeline and move into a van. Honestly, the systems that I built have been good, but they could be better, and a lot of that just comes down to the time that I put into each of these systems. Like Amazon, I didn't put as much time into it because I wanted to spend more time on YouTube, and I didn't have enough time with income on YouTube to build it to a place where it was a sustainable income, even though I still made money. Looking at Amazon over the past 30 days was not good. I averaged under $100 a day, but I also didn't buy anything. So if that's at the normal 25 to 30% profit margin, I still made around $1,000 of profit, and I didn't buy anything, which is really good. And on top of that, YouTube makes me money because I'm still getting views, albeit not a lot of views. And we'll go over this in a completely different video, but I just re-downloaded the YouTube Studio app. Over the past 28 days, I made $192 plus about $200 of affiliate income. And we'll break down all of the income that I made during this time not working in a video coming out soon. But the fact that I'm still able to make $400 from YouTube, probably anywhere from $500 to $1,000 from Amazon, while doing absolutely no work for either of them, is really, really cool. And as one last little bonus tip, my wife actually wrote it down. I'll actually just show you the note that she wrote. We were driving into Maine from New Hampshire, talking about income and like things we wanted to do with our business as well as with our adventures. And she said something that really resonated to my soul because I don't do it very well. And she's a really good tempering force for me in that. Don't strive for investing at the cost of existing, which I think is really good and something that I'm going to try to move forward in. I want to work a lot and do a lot of good work, but I don't want to do it at the cost of existing. So if you want to watch another video where she shares a lot of wisdom, watch this. If you want to see how I make money on Amazon, watch this playlist, or how much I made my first month monetized on YouTube, which was a lot more than this month, watch this video right here. Excited to be back, hopefully 2 to 3 videos every week for the foreseeable future because I don't have any more van builds in progress. Peace.